I don't know if it has proven how it's going to make me better in the long run yet.
I love the yet part.
Yeah, I do think that like any struggle you go through, if you can't look at it and be like, oh, here's how my life is better because of that struggle, I think you just haven't found it yet. I think you can grow from every struggle, and it's just a matter of either looking for it or waiting for it to be revealed.
Team, welcome back to another week with Drew and Alex in the Mops and Mo's podcast. This week's episode was unique because we have recorded episodes in the past where the guests have been in a gym. This week, however, our guest was in a gym that happens to be her home because she doesn't have a home gym. She has a gym that she lives in, basically. Explain that.
Yeah, that's about right.
Just an insane setup. And we talk about it more in the episode, so I won't reveal too much.
Yeah, she'll go into detail on what she has going on in there.
We got a home
and
tour. We got a home tour.
We did.
Or a
You
gym
guys won't get
tour?
to see it, but I
That's a
will.
home tour.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I'll link some videos in the show notes that show her working out in her home
Gym
slash
home.
gym,
Gym home.
whatever you want to call it, gym home. And I think when people think of home gyms, they have a certain idea in their head, right? We just did a home gym episode a couple weeks ago. We talked about stuff you could stash in your garage or your basement and it not get in the way of your life and things like that, right? That's not how Jessie thinks. I think when she was searching for a building to occupy, what she was searching for was a gym that had just enough plumbing and electrical hookups that she could occupy it permanently and make it legal. I don't think she was looking for a home that had enough space in the garage for a squat rack. I think she was looking for a gym that she could technically legally also live in.
Which makes sense because she is fitter than you. Not you, but if you're listening, Jessie Graff
Is fitter than you.
Is fitter than you. So
Yes.
Introduce her for us.
Yeah, so if you don't know who she is, and interestingly, before this episode, I don't think Drew knew who she was. I had to convince him that she was worth bringing on the pod because Drew's not nerdy.
That now, if she's listening, that sounds bad. Jessie, I was pumped to have you on. I don't watch American Ninja Warrior, so that's where I was.
That's fair.
What was that old Japanese game show with the two hosts that were in like?
Are you talking about
outfits?
MXC?
Dude, yes.
Yeah, that's a classic.
I had a hard time going from that to like anything else, including American Ninja Warrior. Anyway, keep going.
I do think she did also appear on Wipeout before she appeared on American Ninja Warrior, which is more
for people who don't know MXC, like give that a Google. That I don't think you could do that anymore.
That was Spike TV, right? And you definitely could not do that anymore.
Spike TV, but like the Asian version.
Yeah, it was.
Sorry, Jessie.
Anyway,
this is Jessie's in the spotlight.
Yep. Our guest this week, Jessie Graff, is probably best known for her athletic achievements, as Drew mentioned, on the obstacle course show American Ninja Warrior. In 2016, she became the first woman ever to complete stage 1 of the Las Vegas finals course. And in 2017, she became the first woman to compete in and to successfully finish stage 2. Her athletic evolution, as you'll hear a little bit about in the episode, started with circus classes, actually. She saw some circus stunt stuff going on and convinced her parents to let her sign up for classes. That led her to gymnastics, and from there she got into pole vault, and then all of that combined with a little bit of martial arts training and a theater major in college led her to being a professional stunt double. She has made stunt double appearances in X-Men First Class, Bridesmaids, John Carter, Sons of Anarchy, and The Mandalorian. And she both acted in and doubled Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman 1984. So working at a really high level in the stunt world. As you might expect from a career like that, she's had her fair share of injuries. We won't spoil the full list in the intro, but a theme you will hear in this conversation is the mindset, resilience, and adaptability to navigate those challenges, the rehab process, what you do during that time, all of those things. And just to highlight it, I think pay attention when she talks about being a top finisher competitively, because you won't hear her talk about her place among the women. She will talk about where she finished among everyone, including the men. She is very competitive and doesn't restrain her competitiveness to just where she stands among other women.
Yeah, Jesse's a badass and super easy to talk to, which is always a pleasure. You will hear in this episode a couple of, I guess you could call them threads that we may try and pull on in the future. I think there's obviously a conversation around women and fitness and body image type stuff, pretty prevalent in the military. She also hints at, and this is at like the tail end of the episode, she hints at how challenging it was for her recovery from an eating disorder. And I won't spoil any of that part of the conversation, but certainly something that we may return to in the future. And then maybe even like you mentioned, there's a conversation to be had about gender norming fitness standards. But most importantly, you'll hear two key things. One, she has a pig that she used to train with. We'll hit that one early. And then two, her mom's a freaking badass. And so we're now on a side quest to bring Jesse's mom on the podcast at some point. We didn't mention that to you, Jesse, if you're listening, but expect an email because we'll be following back up.
Heck yeah. Ginny's awesome.
So enjoy. I want to ask, and you don't have to talk about this if this is a sensitive kicking off point. Samo the pig.
It is. I might cry.
Really?
She's doing great. She lives on a ranch in Northern California. She's a big bully. She bullies all the Rottweilers.
That's awesome.
But she likes the goats and ducks and chickens because they all like respect her.
The reason we asked that is we were doing research and this like whole pig thread appeared, and so then we were on the pig's Instagram and we were like, this is awesome. Like the pig has like aspirations to these different, and I was like, I'm gonna bring it up, but it could go horribly. Like, oh yeah, the pig like died 10 years ago. Or it could be awesome.
No.
So
no, okay. I mean it was heartbreaking because I had a bunch of roommates that were like taking care of her while I was working on Wonder Woman, but I was out of town for 10 months. And she, like a bunch of roommates moved out and there was one left, and she started acting up and peeing on everything, and he just couldn't take care of her anymore. And he kind of gave me a 3-day warning of like, I can't do this anymore. I'm at the end of my rope. If you can find like a friend or a neighbor to bring her to, I'll bring her there. Otherwise, I'm bringing her back to the ranch that you got her at. And I was
sounds like not a friend.
UK.
Sounds like not a friend.
Right?
I don't know.
I get where he's coming from. He was falling apart. This has been going on for a while, I guess. But like, I cried every night for a month. There was just nothing I could do. I was in a different time zone and I only had 3 days to try to brainstorm like who could adopt my pig for 3 months. But they found a new home for her. I secretly planned on like going to visit and stealing her back. But when I went to visit, like, it's such a good place for her. She digs up the whole yard. It's like she has a mission in life now. Like she fully like plows and uproots this giant yard.
Man.
And she used to just do like laps in my living room. And I used to call it her patrol because it's like she was like checking the whole floor. And I was like, oh my God, no, she was phantom digging. Like she needs the dirt.
So it wasn't, and the reason I was asking that is because I remember in college, I think probably most people are like, oh, I'm going to get a pet pig. And then you hear all these stories about, oh, it's a teacup pig, but just kidding. Now it's 1,000 pounds.
There's no such thing.
Right.
There's no such thing as a teacup pig. We were aware of this. Like she's the smallest like natural breed of pigs. They typically are like 40 to 70 pounds. But fun fact that I didn't know about pigs before I got one is that they are one of the fastest animals to like physically evolve within a lifetime. So if you have a baby pig that's like pampered and kept inside, they will like, if they have a relaxing life, they're going to stay kind of small, kind of like smaller bone structure, no tusks, like they'll never grow tusks if they're pampered. Bring that same pig outside in an environment where they have to be tough and strong, and they're gonna like their physical bone structure will like expand. They get bigger, their tusks get long and sharp. It's crazy. So I, of course, wanting to have an athletic pig that defies stereotypes was like having her flip sandbags, run stairs, and jump up on boxes. And so if you look at the other pigs from her litter, they're all like 40 to 50 pounds. And she's currently around like 140 to 150. She's
Just
like,
lean though, like muscle.
she's pretty lean. Like
Yeah,
she's still
for
got like a
sure.
round belly. That's just how
Wow,
pigs are
that's
built. But like she's so muscularly dense.
nice.
She's like as tall as an average dog, like a Labrador Retriever or something. But her neck is like so she's so strong.
I love it. We could have a whole episode on pigs.
I
Oh
feel the
yeah.
episode going off the rails already.
It's fine, whatever.
So we have a history of somewhat forced pivots here, and I'm going to do one right now.
Go for it.
But as I like refresh myself on your story, because I used to watch American Ninja Warrior a bunch. I was a huge nerd and all that stuff. Um,
Yay.
and like had to refresh myself a little bit on your history and like the work you've done and things like that. And what struck me was the injury history you've been through. So
You don't
where I'm
even
gonna like
know.
where I'm
It's
gonna
so
try
much
and connect these
worse.
things is like the so here, let's do that.
Okay.
Can you like how much do you even remember of your own injury history? Like what can you tell us of your injury history?
I've stopped counting the things that didn't require surgery.
Huh.
So I've had 12 or 13 surgeries, plus 3 or 4 stem cell injections, at various times. Well, 3 or 4 times I've had stem cell injections to multiple places. But I'm naturally hypermobile. I have, just hyperextending joints. Was like a super flexible kid. So I'm like genetically inclined to have just stretchy, kind of weaker ligaments. Um, I also do stunts and very high impact activities for a living, and I'm an obsessive overtrainer. Like I love nothing more than pushing to my limits. And you know that feeling when you can't go any farther and everything's failing and you're like, but what if I try? What if I just do one more? I said I was going to do 10, so let me just get the 11th rep. It's like I get so much joy and validation from defying what feels impossible that I push to that limit more often than I should. And with those other 2 factors, that often results in either overtraining injuries or, stunt related impact things. So yeah, I've been through a lot, but I prefer to look at it as being a master of recovery or like exceptionally resilient because, if you get injured again, it can be so depressing to be like, here we are, this is my life. But if I look at it as I'm so good, I'm an expert at recovering from hard injuries. And then that makes me feel like I have an expertise. I'm in my thriving zone. Like I'm going to do the thing that I'm really good at, and I can help teach other people how to do that thing because it's something a lot of people struggle with. And that allows me to keep a positive attitude and feel productive through the recovery process.
So I asked that because like injury and recovery and disability are all obviously huge talking points in the military.
Yeah.
I think there's a dangerous trap of like when people know that they're going to get paid money to be disabled later, they underestimate what they can recover from and they accept certain things as permanently limiting. So just to like
Oh, wow.
to provide a frame of
It's a
reference,
great situation we're
it's
in.
that's a whole rabbit hole we'd have to go down. But to
Ugh.
provide a frame of reference to people, like you're currently still a professional stunt woman, you're
Mhm.
performing at a high level as an athlete, all these things. Can you just give like a couple examples of the actual injuries and surgeries you went through?
Yeah. I had 17 sprained, 17 sprains on my right ankle, I think 7 on my left. I tore my ACL twice, my meniscus twice. So I've had 3 knee surgeries, 4 ankle surgeries. I had a stress fracture in the neck of my left femur, chronic hamstring strains in my left hamstring. I broke my wrist in a motorcycle accident, and I've had 3 shoulder surgeries, rotator cuff, labrum, inferior glenohumeral ligament, and I have bulging discs in my neck at levels C2 through C7. Um, they are Frequently, they were consistently a problem, but I've been doing physical therapy on them for 12 years now. And so I've managed to, even if they've been continuing to degenerate, by strengthening my neck and stretching and doing traction and all these exercises, I don't experience more pain now than I did 12 years ago when it first happened, and I've gotten really good at managing it.
When you list off your injuries, do you always go floor to
Bottom to
head?
top.
Yeah, because you just went bottom to top. I was like, oh, it's
I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you lose track if you don't have some kind of order, but also the ankle sprains started in high school.
Mm.
And so that's like the logical starting point, I
So you've
think.
just been slowly from like the ground up, just sort of slowly falling
Yeah, I
apart.
took no.
I'm kidding.
Incorrect. I do not like that framing. But it has been interesting during my last set of injuries because I had 3 surgeries almost at the same time, and that was the first time I was really forced to sit down and really stretch my brain so that I could stay motivated rather than because I've had so many injuries. It's always like, okay, your right ankle is injured. Now you train left leg and upper body, or your shoulders hurt. Now we train jumps and lower body and kicks. But when you have a knee and 2 shoulders, it's like, okay, well,
Mhm.
we're kind of not training for a while. Like, how do you stay motivated? Because for me, when I'm injured, it is essential that I have a goal that I can hyper focus on. Um, it just gives me motivation from day to day. It helps me feel useful and inspired. And
Mhm.
so when I was injured in 3 different places, I'd been identifying as a stunt woman and athlete for so long that there was a part of me that was like, who are you if you can't do pull-ups and stunts? Like,
Mhm.
what are you good for,
You're circling
So,
around something that I want to put a term on. And
okay.
like the phrase you hear around the military all the time is post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic stress disorder. But a
Mhm.
phrase I hear more and more that I like a lot is post-traumatic growth, how we like
Ooh. Oh
grow
yeah.
from the traumas we go through, whether that
Mhm.
trauma is the loss of a beloved pet pig or a physical injury.
She's not lost. She's just,
She's doing fine.
yeah,
She's still
Yeah.
mad at me, and I
she
will
moved
never get
away.
over that.
As
But
far as I can tell, the pig moving out has been more traumatic than any of the injuries.
Well,
That's the way it seems. But I've heard you talk about this before, and I want to give you a chance to talk about it here, is how like you mentioned that doing both shoulders and the knee within weeks of each other was the first time you got really stopped because your previous response, it sounds like, has been if I hurt my lower body, I'm going to get really into some kind of upper body goal. Or if I
yeah.
hurt my upper body, I'm going to get really into some kind of lower body goal. What did that journey look like for you of like picking up new sports around injuries?
Mm. Well, it goes back to gymnastics. Like I was a gymnast all through high school, and someone was always hurt. We had a big team, someone always had a cast. And so if you were a kid that had their leg in a cast, that's when you get really good at bars and handstands. Um, and if you have a wrist injury, now you're working on your leaps and jumps and trampoline and standing back tucks. And it's like you can't afford to just take time off in gymnastics. Maybe part of it is just like it's such a short lifespan before you're retired as a gymnast for the most part. But you lose skills so quickly. So it was never an option to just stop. It was like, okay, well, you can't do this giant list of things. What are we going to get good at right now? Um, and so that's just a principle that I tried to take with me forever. I always have such a high motivation to be better, be stronger. And it's really devastating to me when I have a goal that I'm so hyper focused on and then it gets fully derailed by some kind of injury. And so it's like, how can I keep getting better through this? And there's a lot of ways you can keep getting better. And sometimes it's not going to, sometimes, if you're pole vaulting and you have an injured leg, there is a lot you can do to work on your upper body strength and your form and visualization. Um, yeah, there's always something you can do physically and mentally, unless you need 3 surgeries at the same time, hitting upper and lower body.
can we like, I don't know if this takes us off script or not. I don't know, but I'll ask it. Because one of the things that we've touched on this a couple of times with different guests, different episodes, but it kind of comes back to this idea with at least within our military sphere and probably broader into sport. But when somebody gets injured, there can be a tendency for that injury to become their personality. Like they identify as that injury all of a sudden. And I
Mhm.
mean, I see this a lot in my day to day where low back, okay, cool. I have like a low back injury now just for like the rest of my existence in this organization. Like I identify as this injury. And it sounds like if you were to take that approach, you'd still be stuck on the ankle from high school because you've been injured so many
I
times
mean,
since.
everything would be hurt.
Right,
Like
exactly.
I would just be a pile of bones.
You'd have multiple personality. If you had a personality for each injury, you'd be all over the place. Um, but I
It's
want
too
to kind
much.
of dive a little bit deeper into what you just said around like I don't know how to even ask this, like being above the injury, like rising above that, coming back from it, like not just letting it hold you down. It sounds like injury to you is an opportunity for growth. What would you say to somebody who's like, well, I'm hurt, I can't do anything?
Um, well, the hard thing there is like you've got to find the motivation to do it. I'm
Hmm.
very lucky in that I'm just relentlessly obsessed with growth and progress. And so that's an advantage that like I already want to be active. So it's just how do I find ways to be active? Um, so the tricky first step for them is how do you find like what do you want to be? What do you want to
Hmm.
grow into? And it can just be a matter of like, well, I don't like how I feel feeling like I can't do anything. What could I do right now? And so like it was a big one for me when I tore my ACL and then 4 days later tore both shoulders. Like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And it was like, not
Abs.
all the things I want to do, I can't do. Yeah. I was like, I can't do abs for a year and have that be my only thing. And like no one thing was really inspiring me. So I just kind of like, I picked up a bunch of classes. I started learning sign language with a friend. I started reading about like hang gliding and free diving. And like, for a couple of weeks, I was just not psyched on any of it. It was just like, well, keep looking at things until one inspires you. And part of it is just, I was really tired from being under anesthesia multiple times. My body was working really hard to heal. Um, but I kept just kind of like working at all of those things, being like, at some point, I'm going to get inspired about something. And I started getting more and more excited about different things, and they've all kind of evolved into different stuff. Like I have not kept up with hang gliding, but I still think it's really cool. Whereas I took a ton of classes in like physical therapy. I did a workshop with my physical therapist in dynamic neuromuscular stabilization
Hmm.
and got certified as or not well, certified as a corrective exercise specialist and a personal trainer and a nutrition coach. And I did like the level 1 CrossFit instructor class. And so it was like I really picked up on that stuff and I'm very excited about how I can start applying those things. So it's like you've you've got to find the motivation first. And sometimes that just feels like kind of blindly trying different things, looking at different things, and eventually something's gonna spark, and then you've got to like run with that.
So I have a follow on specific to that, but before I ask it, I want to know what your weirdest hobby is off of all these injuries. I mean, surely you've stumbled into something like, oh, I collect quarters.
Oh, surely. Um, gosh, what is weird?
I like baking sourdough. It helps.
Oh, cool. I've sprouted a lot of potatoes and I like growing vegetables. The weirdest skill that I have ever acquired, and this one is really weird. It started as a joke when I was in high school. I was making fun of my stepdad because his cats shed so much. They're Persian cats and there was cat hair
Oh man.
everywhere. And I was like, they shed so much, I could make yarn and crochet a blanket out of this, and he challenged me to do it,
Oh, is
and
this
I
gonna go
did.
where you made a blanket out of cat
I
hair?
didn't I didn't make a blanket, but I legit like rolled it together into a whole like ball of yarn, and just demonstrated that I could crochet with it, and then my mom kept it. It still exists.
Oh, jeez.
I didn't necessarily enjoy it, but I had to prove my point, you know?
Just angrily rolling up cat hair, like, just I'm gonna fucking show you. Watch me.
I will show you.
My question about coming back from injuries, I mean, incredibly motivated. It sounds like, have you always been that way? Or was there something that you sort of like, what fostered that
I'm
besides
sure
cat
part of
hair?
it, yeah, that was not a factor in the motivation. That was more of a result. Um, I know a lot of it is just watching my mom and how hard she worked. And like, I think even hard work is kind of play for us. Like a lot of our just casual, like relaxing mother-daughter time was like making a garden, or like one of my biggest treats. I just wanted to be on the roof all the time, but I wasn't allowed on the roof. And so when she let me help paint the house, she would have to let me go on the roof to help paint the house. And so like if I got to clean the gutters or paint the house, that was like, I'm allowed on the roof. This is the greatest thing ever. And like we lived on a lake, and our dock would like every spring when the ice melted, the dock would float across the 400-acre lake, and it's like a 2-ton dock and there's no motors allowed. So it would be like a fun adventure day when we row the boat all the way across the lake, chain it up to the rowboat, and then try to row this 2-ton dock back to the house. So like that's a part of it. It's just the way we identify hard work as fun and big challenges as heroic, that doesn't make it feel like hard work. It's like, this is the game today. Here's what we get to
Mm,
do. Um, but there's also like, I don't know, I think I'm inherently like a little bit OCD, and I've just learned to apply it well. Like when I was a little kid, I was just like a really grumpy, uncomfortable kid. Like I didn't know what to do with my energy, until I started gymnastics and had like a structure and a goal, and suddenly it was like, I know what to do, you know? And
mhm.
so I've learned that I am a much happier, more peaceful person when I have a goal that I can pour my energy into. And so if I'm not feeling motivated, I'm like, you need a goal. Let's pick one. Um, Even like Ninja Warrior was kind of an arbitrary choice. It was like that was the first ACL tear. And I knew I was going to be on crutches for a while, and I couldn't do stunts for at least 6 months to a year. And I was like, how are you going to stay motivated? Like, I can't just study videos of stunts. I'm going to lose my mind. Like, I need a physical goal. I was like, that Ninja Warrior thing was pretty fun. Let me see how strong I can get upper body while I can't walk. And then fell in love with it, and it changed my life. So it's like that also, I think, helped inspire my willingness to stay open to different ideas, because it was just like the ACL tear was devastating. It was like it derailed my whole plan, my stunts, everything was going great. Um, but the fact that like because I was willing to be open and pour everything into a new goal, it shifted my life in a way where, I'm not just focused on my training for my own joy. Like I get to have an impact on the world, and all these little girls who look up to me and eat vegetables because I told them broccoli is cool. Like that's one of the greatest shifts in my life. And it happened because I got hurt and stayed open to new ideas. And so years later in 2020, when I tore both shoulders and my ACL, part of me was devastated, but the other part was like, what amazing thing is going to happen now? Like, what opportunities were available that you've been like shut off to because you were so focused on the goal that you had decided was the most important thing in the world? Like, there
Mm.
are other exciting things out there worth pursuing, and sometimes an injury is what forces you to look in a different direction. So, um, I try to embrace that, because either it's true or it's going to help me feel better through the process. Either way, it's better.
That's fair.
Yeah, yeah.
S- So we've talked about the injury piece a bunch, and for like people who aren't familiar with you, those who are, you have something of a kind of a Wonder Woman brand, competitive gymnast, collegiate track and field athlete, American Ninja Warrior, stunt woman on literally Wonder Woman. Um, and it can be easy to assume that you've just kind of dominated everything you've gone after. And I don't know the details of your story, but it sounds like a little bit of this has also been navigating things not working out the way you wanted them to, whether it was injuries or
Yeah.
otherwise. So moving away from injury, but a different kind of resilience. What role has failure at the goals you were chasing played? Because you've chased some pretty big goals.
Yeah. Like I said, big borderline impossible goals are really, really motivating to me. But I get so attached to them that falling short of those goals, which we've already established are borderline impossible, is just devastating to my heart and soul. Like when I had to let go of being an Olympic gymnast, like it felt like my heart was being torn out. But there was a point where I had to accept, like, I'm 5'8". I started gymnastics when I was 12. Like, realistically, I'm probably not going to be an Olympic gymnast. And now I'm 17, graduating from high school. That's when most gymnasts are like either at the Olympics or retiring, you know?
Mhm.
It was like coming to terms with that and being like, but I'm not a quitter. I don't quit things, but there is a time to move on. Um, and same thing, I like my goals with pole vaulting, I wanted a world record. Like I was not willing to accept anything short of a world record. And I would, do conditioning by myself every night. I would double whatever conditioning my coach gave us to do. I would do at least double it. And I would do drills like pole vault drills with an umbrella while I walked to class every day. It was just like full commitment, full everything, which is great. It makes you good really quickly. But that level of commitment is excruciating when you have to accept, like, it didn't work. Like, was it
Mhm.
all for nothing? Did I just waste 8 years being obsessed with pole vaulting? And it really did feel that way. It didn't feel that way as much with gymnastics because it was so clear how, even though I failed at being an Olympic gymnast, everything I learned in gymnastics made me a pole vaulter. Like it set me up to be a great pole vaulter before I even knew what pole vaulting was. And so realizing that failing at gymnastics made me a great pole vaulter, failing at pole vaulting set me up to have a great foundation for stunts and all of my training in stunts. Not that I failed at stunts, but I wanted to be the most freakishly awesome stunt woman on the planet. And there are a lot of amazingly talented stunt people. And so to some degree, in my head, I was like, well, I'm just one of the group, and letting go the idea of like having to be the best and just being like, let me just be the best that I can be. Like, again, part of my brain was perceiving that as failure. But all of those goals set me up to be really good at this random reality show that turned into a sport that nobody ever could have predicted. It was like nobody knew how to train for this thing because it took random skills from so many different random places. And I was like, that happens to be all the things I've done all my life. Amazing. And so I think seeing how each failure has led to a bigger, more fulfilling success has allowed me to be a lot more accepting of those failures. Um, Even every time I fail on Ninja Warrior, it's like I have a process of like how to accept failure. Like first, remember that little girls are watching and that I want to set a good example. Like from the outside, like how do I want my role models to behave when they fall short of their goals, and do that. Um, Second, like yes, it feels like a waste unless you can identify what you gained from it. So I ask myself, in training for this year, did I get stronger? Yes. Did I get faster? Did I get more coordinated? Did I make friends? Oh, yes, to all of the above. Okay, so this year was not a waste. Just because you fell in the water on a reality show doesn't mean that you wasted every day of getting stronger and healthier. But then I break down, okay, why did I fall? What did I do wrong? Oh, well, the light was in my eyes. I had bad depth perception because there was a light in my eyes. Well, is that something I can control? No, but can I control my ability to adjust my eyes and depth perception in the face of like a really awkward bright light? Yeah, that's going to be really annoying. I'm going to have to do my training with like a light flashing. But if I do that, then I'm now more prepared to face that next year. What if I fell on the warped wall? Well, it was dusty, the wind, like there was dust all over it. So I slipped. Okay, well, what can you do about that? I have a friend who trains warped wall in socks. He doesn't care how slippery it is because his form is so good that he can get up with like no traction. Oh, well, I didn't do that. Maybe I should do that, and next year I'll be more prepared. So if I can identify something I can do to be better, then the fall wasn't a failure. It was like a wake-up call to something I need to get better at. The worst is when it's something that you already knew, because it's
Mm.
like, well, that's not a new thing. Like I already knew that. I know not to do that. Like what's wrong with my brain that I couldn't fix it, that I made that mistake again. And so those are the hardest ones for me to swallow. But it's like, okay, well, what did you learn? And did you do the things that you said you were going to do?
Do you have
Yes, we're doing more.
now I'm just wondering if you have like a studio light in your house to blind you while you're doing Ninja Warrior training.
Those people who are listening and only have audio, she's gone off screen to get her spotlight.
Got this.
So that
It's
you
a
have
light
an
bar. Yeah.
actual light. Oh man.
Yeah.
Pretty awkward, right?
Now
Yeah.
is that for explicitly for the purposes of training?
No.
Okay. Because that would have been awesome.
No, and that was an example that like, did that really happen? I guess the drill that I usually do is like, so in Ninja, we'll be flying through the air and have to grab a bar. And if
Mhm.
the lights or sometimes there's bursts of fire or something, little distractions, that can distract your eyes, or like you pop up faster or slower at a different distance than you're expecting, and you're having to like reach in different directions. And so the way I practice that is I have a bar or like a cliffhanger ledge that I have to jump to. And so I'll show you, basically, I'll stand by the bar, I close my eyes, I turn a little, and then jump and open my eyes like while I'm in the air. And so then I have to like reorient to where I am, see the bar and grab it. And so it drills the habit of getting my eyes to adjust fast enough to grab something where I don't expect it to be.
Damn,
Um,
that's awesome.
Thanks. I think I would be a lot better at it if I practiced like playing catch. That's a skill that I missed out on as a kid. I'm not very good at throwing and catching. I do practice now, but I think that's another way I could practice that would be beneficial.
There's a fantastic video. You may have stumbled across this. It's like 10 years old at this point, but they're interviewing a bunch of professional climbers and they're asking them why they climb. And the first
Mhm.
4 or 5 people give these like inspiring things about like pushing the limits of what humans are capable of,
Mhm.
or just the outdoors and the inspiration of the mountains and all this stuff. And then they get to the next guy and he's like, "What do you mean?" Because I can't catch a ball. Like it was fantastic.
Nice.
I can't play. Yeah, can't catch. I want to ask you, you probably get this question a lot, but I'm a girl dad, so it has a special place in my heart. And you've mentioned now a couple of times just sort of the influence that you have on, I would assume other women, but also younger girls, like
Mhm.
very fit, very intelligent when it comes to training. How do you communicate that to a population that still, in some sense, seems to think that like, oh, weights are going to make me bulky, or I should just do calisthenics, or yeah, I know you probably hear this all the time. I'm just
Yeah.
curious what your take on all of that is.
Well, I mean, I'm also a stunt woman, and my first job as a stunt woman is to match the actresses, and the actresses
Mhm.
are not super muscular necessarily. I haven't met many who are very muscular. So there is this intense pressure as a stunt woman to be skinny.
Mm.
And I fought with that for a long time, like trying not to have any sugar, kind of under eating, doing a ton of cardio, and just feeling really unfulfilled. And part of the reason that I think I tore my ACL the first time is because I was afraid of doing strength training. So I'm doing like parkour and taekwondo and all these high impact activities, but I won't do squats because I'm afraid of my thighs getting big. Um, and so that ACL tear was when I had this mental shift of what what do I care if I'm not skinny enough to do the job, if I'm too weak to do the job. Um, and so I did an experiment like, okay, well, you're not going to work for a while anyway. why don't you just see how strong you can possibly get and just find out? Because I was like, oh, I build muscle so easily. Every single girl says that who's afraid of building muscle. They're like, oh, I pick up a weight and I gain 10 pounds of muscle. So I'm like, okay, well, test that, see what happens. And like part of me was like, oh, I'm gonna look like, Mother Russia from Kick-Ass, which she's worked very hard to do that. Like
Well done.
it's kind of insulting to say like, oh, that's gonna happen to me by accident. Um, and so I was like, okay, just get as strong as you can and see how bulky you get. Just have that awareness. And I all of my like my arms, my legs, everything got leaner and thinner because muscle is more dense than fat. So and I measured it to make sure. So I have like scientific evidence that like each of my thighs shrank like an inch and a half in circumference because the fat all turned into muscle, and muscle is more dense. And so it's not something that I focus on anymore. I found so much like self-fulfillment and validation in the new skills that I had. Like once I got strong, I was able to do skills and tricks that I had worked on forever, like so hard and couldn't get. Well, now I can jump higher, so I can do them. And I try to keep my focus on what do I want to be able to do? What superpowers do I want to have? How high do I want to climb? How many flips do I want to be able to do? And when I stay focused on that, then it takes all the emphasis on like how I'm supposed to look to fit in with society. I don't care because I'm too proud of what I'm capable of doing. And the funny thing is that through that mental shift, I've gotten so much leaner that I receive a lot of outside validation for how I look now. Which again, like I don't want to focus on that. I just want to be as strong and capable as possible. And that just brings so much peace. And so I hope that, women who are afraid of getting too bulky can be reassured that it's not going to happen by accident. And it goes away fast too. Like when I had my shoulder surgeries, I lost 2 inches of bicep in less than a month. Like it goes fast. You have to work really hard. Yeah.
I did the ACL surgery journey, and I just looked at the picture earlier today because a friend is rehabbing her ACL surgery as we speak. And I looked at the picture of my legs side by side, like shortly after the surgery. And
Yeah.
like first it's like twice as big because it's all swollen and gross. And then the swelling goes down and it's half as big because all the muscle's gone. Because as soon as you like sever it, it was traumatic. That was hard.
It is. Yeah. And you have to wake all those muscles back up again. It's a process.
Do you like, this is more a curiosity question because I've spent zero time as a stunt person, but like, is that a thing that you have to deal with in the sense of like, Wonder Woman, like, or just I guess any role? Oh, you're too strong, you're too bulky, you're not lean enough. But then also at the same time, to your point, like surely there's an understanding that you have to carry around a certain amount of muscle mass and strength to be able to do the thing. Like, is that an issue, or is that just kind of like part of the job?
Oh yeah. That is a primary issue for
like you need to be
stunt women
weaker to get this
especially.
role. And it's like, what the hell?
Well, there are like anomalies. Like I have a couple friends who are just, they're so naturally thin, like they have a small frame and they can do all the skills and be super skinny, and that works for them, and that's great. And I've lost jobs here and there because I'm too muscular or my arms are too big. But for my sanity, I found that I just can't focus on that. Like I just want to be the best I can be. And there are a lot of jobs where they're like, her arms are too big, but she's the only one that can do it. And I'd much rather be
That's
the
gotta
one that
feel
gets
good.
that job. Right.
Yeah, that feels pretty good. Have you ever looked at an actress and been like, how about you get stronger? Like, why is it on me? Like, you need to go lift.
It's on all of us as an audience to tell people what we want to see, to celebrate what we want to be celebrated in our society. And I think it has, especially in recent years, become way more popular to be strong and healthy. Like I really noticed, I don't know if this is a UK thing, but on Ted Lasso, when the women are complimenting each other, it's always like, you're so fit. It's not like, they're not talking about your weight. They're talking about your fitness. And I again, I don't know where that comes from or if it's like a Ted Lasso thing or a UK thing, but like it always makes me happy when I hear people talk about that. But
Mhm.
like the more we celebrate people being fit, strong, healthy, the more the movie industry is going to follow and be like, oh, we need that. And then there's going to be pressure on people to get stronger.
Mhm.
Um, and then everyone's
Nice.
healthier and yay.
So I have a question about like training program design kind of stuff and how you train. But
Mhm.
before I do it, I want to make sure I'm up to speed on your like academic history. So if I've got this straight, you started out majoring in aerospace engineering, then you switched to theater as you were figuring out what you wanted to get into and the whole stunt thing and all that stuff. But is it correct that a couple years ago you started a master's in kinesiology?
Yeah, so when I switched to being a theater major, I was double majoring in theater and exercise science. And so I went through, I think, the first 2 years of that major before the theater and the exercise science like conflicted and overlapped in a way that was impossible to do both. And so then I stuck with theater because that has come in very handy in stunts. Like so much of stunts is just physical acting. And then I have acting jobs too. But I really soaked up the exercise science stuff. And it's something that has come into play so much through my injury history and my training for stunts and everything. Um, and so yeah, when I had the three surgeries at the same time, I applied for a master's program. Um, and I once I got back to work, I wasn't able to continue doing it, but I got into like a physiology class and did a ton of studying and then ended up following more of the different like trainer certifications. So I'm
Mhm.
not currently still working on my master's, but it is something that I'm very interested in and I'm still studying related things.
Well, first off, you're in good company here. This comes up all the time on the podcast. Both of us started in something that was completely unrelated to human performance and then
Yeah.
ended up
Mhm.
with a big career shift.
Not theater though. That's pretty cool. Mine was just business.
Yeah, yours is a little more
I like
interesting than
how
ours.
opposite it is from
Hey, I got a minor in African studies. I can tell you how many times that's
cool.
come into exercise science.
I mean, mine were international relations and terrorism studies, so it wasn't wasn't very directly related. It was super relevant to my career in the army, not as
Mhm.
relevant to the things I'm doing today. But still, there's
Here
there's
we
weird
are.
ways that it does still end up supporting it,
Here we
and I
are.
just think the academic background helps. But where the question was going is, you've clearly changed the way you've trained over your career in a few different ways.
Mhm.
You already talked about like getting over the fear of building too much muscle and things like that. But one I heard you talk about in another video I watched of you and things like that was shifting from trying to make the most like the quickest possible gains
Mm.
to looking for slower, more sustainable improvements. And that's a theme we see in fitness all the time. Most of the research is on how can you do this the fastest. Everybody wants the quick fix kind of solution.
Mhm.
But as you've probably observed through your history, that's where overuse injuries come in. That's like your even if your muscles can get stronger faster, your tendons and ligaments and your bones might not keep up. How has your training evolved because of what you've learned from the exercise science and kinesiology stuff you've studied?
Um, well, the physiology class led me into studying energy systems, and I train with a woman from this place called Game Ready Performance, who is like her specialty is energy systems and heart rate tracking. Um, but I also read this book called Training for Climbing, where they explain the physiology of um, the three different energy systems and how they apply to rock climbing. And so through these three different sources, I learned that 100% of my training was in the lactic system. So basically the area where you're doing a high enough intensity with high enough reps that you get intense burn and go to muscle failure. And then you're really sore for a couple days. So I would do a push day where I pushed to my limits and got really sore. And then the next day I would do a pull day and pull to my limits and get really sore. And then a leg day. And so all the time, all of my muscles have acid in them. They're just like compromised and acidic. And so then there's just no time for them to recover and feel good. But having all those like hydrogen ions just floating around in your muscles makes them more prone to injury. So it's not just that I was like sore. It's that they were literally compromised all the time. And the bigger thing that really had an impact on me is that lactic training is the type that will get you really strong, really fast to a certain point. In like 2 to 3 months, you can hit the maximum capacity of your lactate system, and then you're going to hit a plateau and not get any better. Whereas if you train your aerobic system and your alactic system, so like your ATP and phosphocreatine, those are going to have very slow gains and they will continue for your entire life. So I wasn't really aware of the plateau because I always got injured at the end of it. I would like get really strong, really fast, and then have a devastating injury that stopped my like exponential growth that I was anticipating. And so it was always the injury's fault that I stopped progressing and had to start over. I didn't realize that it was the type of training that was causing the injury and that I was about to hit a plateau anyway. So for the past couple of years since I learned that, I've been doing more polarized training. So for the most part, I'm doing like very low intensity aerobic exercise and then absolute maximum strength for under 10 seconds and kind of rotating those two things. And then when it comes down to like 3 months before competition, then I start adding the lactic training. And I think I am stronger than I was before by a little bit, but I'm like just starting the lactic training again, but I'm very rarely all that sore. So it's like, even if I don't get stronger, if I can get the same amount of strong, but I'm less injury prone and not sore most of the time, that's a win. But I think I'm entering the phase right now where I'm about to be stronger than I ever was.
Hell yeah.
Well, we're starting to get close to the hour mark, and bringing up energy systems is a great way to send Drew down a giant rabbit hole. It's something we've discussed on like at least 4 episodes of the podcast. So we'll hold him back and save that topic for another day. But before we leave it behind, I do have to ask a question though, because you said you were like primarily focused on like that short duration lactic type of training. And from my like brief background research before this, am I wrong to say that your 5K PR was like 15:56?
That is definitely incorrect. I've heard that listed there.
Okay. Because I was going to say, there's no way you
Just
got a
own it.
15:56
It's out there.
5K
Absolutely
if you
not.
weren't doing any aerobic training.
It's out
like
there.
that.
Just be like, yeah, that was me.
Absolutely not. No, I'm working on it. I've actually been working on running really hard for almost a year now, and my best mile time is finally under 7 minutes. So
Well, you run a 5K
It's
under
not-
16 minutes, so like
incorrect. No,
I was pretty rattled by that given the sports you've been
I
focused
think
on.
it's
I've
AI.
only
It's
done
AI.
a 5K once, and
Okay.
I think my
Fast.
time was 29 minutes.
It's on her Wikipedia page for those
Where
who are
did
gonna
that
blame
come
me for the
from?
bad research.
No idea. No
Did you know
idea.
that? I'm sure you've seen that before.
No, someone told me that a couple weeks ago, I think. Maybe it was a couple
Alex, what's the
months.
source next to the number?
Let's see. It just links to like a World Athletics page. I don't know. It has your
What's
pole
that
vault
mile
stuff on it.
pace?
The World Athletics stuff just has
A
100 meter and pole
16
vault on
minute.
it.
What was the time for the 5K? 16:56?
15:56.
15:56.
But there's nothing about 5K
That's
on the page
that's
it links
a
to.
Wow,
five.
it's like
That's
5 minute mile.
It's a
five-ish.
5:20 pace. It's savagely fast. I was gonna be
That
blown
is
away if you somehow did
Well
that.
done,
crazy.
Jesse. You're very fast. All the Ninja Warrior stuff has made you lightning
Maybe
quick.
someday. Maybe someday.
All right. Well, so that makes it. I was prepared to be astonished that the style
No,
of training you were
I
doing was
wish.
taking you to that point.
Have you?
Maybe,
Hold on.
maybe if I keep this up.
Have you? I mean, I'm sure this question could spiral very quickly, but like, I guess along the same lines, in terms of athletic achievements, have you stumbled onto anything online that people have said, like, oh, yeah, I heard she could deadlift 6,000 pounds? Like, have you stumbled onto anything else where you're just like, what the hell?
I don't think so. There are a lot of people who think I would be a great MMA fighter.
Fair.
I'm very good at pretending to fight and not hurting anyone. So
Nice.
That's fair.
So now that we've established that your skills are at least within a realm that's understandable,
Yeah.
I want to hit a few things before we run out of time here.
Okay.
One that I think is pretty cool is like a lot of times when people ask about your achievements, they talk about your performance among women and you correct them to point out that you were like in the top 5 or 6 overall. It's not about among women. I'm curious about your thoughts on like competing in spaces where men and women compete together, but I'm also curious about how it's like what it's meant to you to set a lot of firsts for women. There's obviously like there was tons of coverage when you were the first woman to finish stage 1 on American Ninja Warrior and all that stuff.
Mhm.
I'm curious about that dichotomy of trying not to compare yourself just to women and compete with everybody there, but also setting firsts for women.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's beyond what I had ever thought would be possible for me. I'm really lucky that I came into this sport at the right time, but I think I almost prefer competing with the guys because it puts me in a situation where I am totally the underdog. There's not as much pressure of like you have to keep up. It's just like self-imposed pressure of I want to, I want to.
Mm.
It seems impossible, and that's what makes it so exciting. Um, but in Ninja Warrior, it is so technical, it's so precise, and a lot of people underestimate that. So, especially when it was a new sport, you'd have all these guys that were like 6 times as strong as me who would look at an obstacle and be like, oh, yeah, I can do that. And I'd look at it and be like, I'm definitely not strong enough to do that. How can I be more efficient than everyone else? And I would, be out there with a notebook and a pencil and like walking out the steps to be like, okay, exactly how far apart are these 2 bars and how high is the trampoline and how many steps can I take to run up and hit this so I don't have to think about my steps, so I don't stutter step. And I would just calculate more than everyone else. And so that allowed me to usually place in the top 6 men and once to place second among the men. And so at the time, I wasn't even thinking about like, where am I ranking among the women? Am I the top woman? It was like, can I beat all the boys?
Mm.
Um, and the amazing gift from that is that I got to have these, through social media interactions with so many women who literally didn't know that it was possible for women to have upper body strength. Like somebody told them when they were a kid that like, oh, you can't do that, you're a girl. And they had no one telling them otherwise. And I was just really lucky that I had a mom who always believed I could and also believed in taking on impossible challenge and being like, well, I don't think there's any way we can do this. Let's find out. Let's give it a shot. And so that willingness to take on impossible challenges and willingness to fail puts you in situations where you're able to succeed, even if you didn't know you could. Um, so yeah, getting to fulfill that role of being the woman who got to show all these other women what's possible has been wildly like just so amazing, like so fulfilling. So I'm really grateful that I got to have that part. And now it's like the little girls who were looking up to me at the time. Like I know a bunch of teenagers now who dressed up as me for Halloween and are now kicking my butt in competition. Like they're so crazy strong. And like a couple of the girls were talking to me about how like they've never felt pressure not to be muscular. Like no one's ever told them it was weird for a girl to be muscular. They've been proud of their muscles since they were little kids. And like how cool that I get to see that shift. Um, so
Hell
I
yeah.
feel very lucky to be in the middle of this world.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome. Okay. I got 2 more and then I'll let Drew do some rapid fire closers. I heard a comment you made a couple years ago about how learning to fall should be the first thing that's taught in physical
Yeah.
education. And we have a lot of conversations here about the state of
Falling.
physical
Oh,
education in
yeah.
America and like how that affects military recruiting and readiness and a million other things, just public health situations in America. Um, but like going off of the comment about learning to fall, I'd love to hear your opinion on like how physical education in America is serving us, or
Just a
if it
small
is.
question.
I know that could be a whole episode. Sorry.
Just a small one.
Um, Gosh, it's hard to say because I live in such my own bubble and
Mm.
like Instagram shows you what you tell it that you want to see. And so all I see are like 3-year-olds that can do backflips and 5-year-olds that are like kicking a soccer ball 100 yards into a basketball hoop. Like I just see exceptional athletic performance. And so like the upper level of like performance has risen from what it used to be. There are so many resources to be as amazing as you want to be just at your fingertips. You don't have to have like the best coaches in the world. Obviously that helps, but like you can have YouTube and a park and become an amazing athlete. And that's pretty spectacular. So everyone has the resources in a way.
Fair.
That's a blanket statement that maybe isn't true, but like the resources are out there. They're not like only for, you know, the rich and the people who have everything.
Sure.
But yeah, I've actually, one of my goals, I would love to host a reality show with my mom where we get to like go work with an individual family that needs help with their fitness and like see what they do and what their favorite recipes are and like teach them how to cook those recipes in a healthier way and be like, okay, what's the kids' favorite movies? What are their favorite video games? Okay, well, we're going to teach you how to be that character. Like help them find their motivation and find like what gets them fired up to work out. Like exercise doesn't have to be torture and diets don't have to feel like a cage. If you can find the way to make it all fun, then it's not, it doesn't take discipline to do it. It just becomes the game and the lifestyle. And so I feel like that's something that my mom and I specialize at, how to make it all fun. And so I would love to have a show where we can share that, not just with like the individual families. It's not like a boot camp where we're whipping them into shape. We're teaching them the life skills to do it forever for fun, and then sharing that with all the viewers. So that's one of my big goals.
Is this like a teaser that's because I feel like you know the right people to do that?
You know, pitching a show is not quite yet in my skill set. It's something I really need to work on.
We're one injury
I'm not
away
a
from
good
you
networker.
mastering that. We're one injury away. That's going to be your next thing.
How about I just learned to refocus my brain without breaking something?
That's, I mean, yeah,
That's the skill.
that'd be the healthier approach, but you know, that'd be an awesome show. Anyway, I digress.
Thank you.
All right. Last one for me. This episode will come out in about 3 weeks, I think. But the episode in real time right now that just came out for our podcast was all about home gyms. And I've seen some video suggesting just the absolute legendary level you've taken it to. I'll ask you to
it's
describe.
just getting better.
Put
I'll
some of
ask
those
you
in
to
the show
describe
notes.
it.
Put some in the
Yeah,
show notes.
I'll link some for people who don't know what I'm talking about. But I want you to describe what the gym situation is like.
Well, you're in
But
a gym
first-
right now. We should mention, like, you're in your gym.
That's part of this question because what I want to know is,
Mhm.
do you have a home gym or do you have a gym home?
A gym home.
Yeah.
For
Straight
sure.
face, boom,
Like,
gym home.
yeah. When I first started looking for a house, I was like, well, do I want to look for a house that I can turn into a gym or like a warehouse that I can build a little apartment in the corner of? Um, it would have worked either way. I'm really happy with this one because it's kind of fun that I get to make it look a little bit like a home, but mostly it's just like, I call it the tree house. When you open the front door, you face like stairs that go up and down, and I put like grips on the back of each one so you don't cut your fingers when you monkey bar up all the way like 2 flights of stairs. The first floor has a hallway where it's just like a 27-foot long rock climbing traverse. And it's like, it's kind of shaped like little mountains. So even if I couldn't climb it, like I really like the decor of it. It makes me feel like sort of like homey and nature, but
fitness
obviously
chic.
the primary goal is like to climb it. And so I have different difficulty levels and I can just do laps back and forth. So I can get like my aerobic local musculature going on, 15 minutes of back and forth climbs. And then once you come up the stairs, I have wall to wall mats. There's a treadmill in the kitchen. I recently installed monkey bars through the kitchen so that you can technically like cook a meal while hanging from your hands.
She
Which I
says
just think
technically,
is
but she also
hilarious.
means literally.
Literally.
There are videos of her cooking
Yeah,
without
this has
touching the
happened.
ground. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
thing.
this is not a metaphor. This is real life.
And then there's like there's all kinds of grips and trapezes hanging from the rafters and the ceiling.
Oh, wow.
There's a heavy bag, like a punching bag, that's on a pulley with a gree-gree. So you can lower it to actually use as a punching bag or just raise it out of the way or hang from it or swing from it. There's a set of stall bars. There's a loft that you can like come out the window. There's 2 zip lines that are sometimes up, an endless rope. And then like the cliffhanger ledges to like work on your grip swing, then swing back and forth. But the big one that I'm going to show you a close up of, I recently I've been learning how to build, and my friend helped me get started on this, but I took out a column in the ceiling of the kitchen so that like I'll be able to put
No
bars
way.
up there and then be able to do laches, because I really want to work on a lache is where you let go of one bar with both hands and then catch the next bar. And so the style lately, like ever since the kids have started competing on the show, it's become more race-like. And so there's a huge advantage to being able to swing from one bar, and then when you catch the next one, be already set in a backswing to go to the next one. And so I wanted to have at least 3 bars in a row that I could practice that skill on. And if I put it in the kitchen, I was going to hit my face on the ceiling. So I just took out the ceiling.
I have so many thoughts. Like when somebody comes to your house for the first time, are they just like, what the
Um, I mean, they would be if they didn't know me.
That's
I was going to
fair.
say, people know who you are.
No,
They know
it's,
what they're getting into.
I'm envisioning like a supper club and like somebody walks in, they're like, oh my God.
A supper club. I don't have any chairs.
Okay, that was my next question. Do you have chairs? Can you get from your bed to your kitchen without touching the ground?
The bedroom doesn't have that many, doesn't really have anything to
Accoutrements?
hang from yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Once you get to the hallway, though, you can get pretty much everywhere without touching the
Without
floor.
touching the ground.
Oh, check this out. So this is one of the most recent things that my friend helped me build.
I love this home tour we're getting, by the way.
These cabinets, we made it sturdy enough that I can climb the cabinet so I can stand on top of it. But also, when you take the door off its hinges, this is a 1 centimeter ledge. So you can hang from this ledge. It's called a vertical limit. And then the other one is a 2 centimeter ledge. So it's more of a cliffhanger. So my cabinets double as obstacles. I love when things have like secret passageways and like hidden obstacles that like it looks like a normal thing, but really it's for training and getting stronger.
So is it safe to say this is your forever home? I mean, I can't imagine the resale value with a
Right.
unless there's a ninja warrior growing up who's going to buy Jesse's house.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hopefully Ninja Warrior will become more and more popular, and that will be a thing that's in high demand. I can see in the future like renting it out to people while I travel the world and become like a pirate or something. But a nice pirate. I don't want to take things from anyone, but I like the idea of having sword fights on a ship in the Caribbean.
That's fair. I mean, we all aspire
Yeah.
to different things. So
Seems like a good way to retire. I like the idea of being like a 70-year-old woman teaching tourists how to be pirates.
I'm going to pause you because this is the best transition we've ever had to one of my closers. Could not have teed this up any better. If you were a pirate on a desert island, you can take one piece of gym.
Oh, that was the real question. Okay, great.
No, well, I was going to get there eventually. You started talking about pirates, islands. It all fits. It's like, we didn't plan this out. We just met. This is perfect. Go. One thing, not including hanging from trees, because I can only
one piece of
imagine
training equipment.
one
if you
piece
were
of
to make
training
it clear.
equipment.
Oh, okay. So not like flint or a pot. One piece of training equipment.
Flint. Did you say flint or pot or flint and a pot?
She's talking about
A
the ability to
pot.
like cook and feed herself. You're
I
talking
thought
Like if
she
I'm
was
on an
talking
island
about
and I only
making a
get one
fire
thing.
and getting high. Like that's I mean, that's cool. Yeah, you get one piece of gym equipment on the island. Go.
It's got to be a bar.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Even with all the trees and stuff.
Oh, that's a great point.
Because I would, based on your house, I would imagine you would be well suited to an island in terms of swinging around.
Yeah.
We've had
Oh, yeah,
sled.
yeah.
People have had sled. We've had kettlebell. Kettlebell's a common one.
I love sleds, but you can fill up a bag with sand and
That's
like
true. No, you're right.
drag it. It's not as good as a sled, but if you're limited with things,
Is your answer then that
that's
you
all you
wouldn't
can
even
do.
bring a piece of equipment? You would just make do with the
No,
island environment? Because that would
no,
be kind of
absolutely
badass.
not. Um, at least a rope.
Okay.
Because you know what? If do I have a knife?
Sure. Yeah.
I have a
And
knife,
and
right?
pot
Because I
apparently.
could,
Yeah.
and a pot. Okay, I have a knife and a pot. Um, yeah, I guess I wouldn't bring a bar because I could like chop a branch and because like with the bar to be able to swing on it, you want to be able to like smooth it out and
Hmm.
not get your hands caught on the bark and everything. But I'm gonna need rope. Although,
Yeah. I
yeah,
could.
I'd rather have like some solid rope. I could definitely make some cordage with whatever I find. But
I love this.
but it'd be nice to have a real rope. That's one of my latest hobbies. I'm like fascinated with survival stuff. I'm not an expert at all, but
Do you follow Ross Edgley at all? Is that a familiar name?
Ross Edgley,
Oh my goodness.
no, not yet.
Jesse, he's most well known for swimming around the United Kingdom. He swam around the island of Great Britain.
Whoa.
But another, I guess, event he accomplished was he climbed the height of Everest on a rope. So just
No way.
completed rope climbs until he accumulated that many feet. Yeah. So
Not all
Okay.
consecutively.
yeah. I mean, he came off like he went up and then he would come down. He came up, but he like didn't go and do other stuff and then come back. Like he did it. He's a maniac. Yeah, I think you guys will get along.
Hmm. Yeah. One of my other missions is to get a world record for climbing the longest rope. Um,
Did you
Like,
see the woman who just did it on the Eiffel Tower?
mhm.
Yeah,
was she like
I got pretty hyped
secured?
by that. I want to do that. I think there was a belay system on her for that. I think she was like
Yeah.
had a safety rig, but it was essentially to from the ground to like the second floor people can access up on the Eiffel
Uh,
Tower. So the whole height of the support structure.
But not all the way.
which is how high?
I'll do some Googling.
100 feet, 200 feet?
I mean, apparently with you, we can just throw random shit on your Wikipedia page and it becomes true. So we could just
Apparently
say
that's true.
she's
Yeah.
climbing the Eiffel Tower. But that teed up my next question perfectly. We're rolling. What's one thing like what's your next kind of cool thing you want to do?
Um, I'd like to get better at whistling, but
Fair?
that's not my cool one. Um, there's a specific move that I'm working on in Ninja Warrior because like the show started in Japan and it's this really cool obstacle on stage 3 that I haven't been able to get yet. So that's one of my missions. I want to relearn a backflip on the balance beam. Like I can still do
Hmm.
a back handspring, but I just decided it'd be cool to be able to do a back tuck again. Um, what else? Specific things I'm working on. I mean, I want to become a survivalist.
You gonna go on one of those shows and
I want to make my own. I'm working on a sizzle reel
a
for one
sizzle?
that's like a sizzle reel. So like it's not quite a trailer, but
Hmm.
it lays out the idea of what the show is.
So it's
But
two
it's
shows we're launching.
2 shows. Yeah, I mean, that's the world I live in,
Fair.
TV shows. So that's kind of where my brain goes. But I just love the idea of being able to have fun while educating people, but educating them in a fun way. So I want it to be like a binge-worthy show that people are watching because it's just entertaining, but they're
Hmm.
accidentally learning really cool, useful skills in the
Okay,
process.
Alex is typing this in as we're talking. So the rope climb
I,
110 meters for Everest.
no, 110
No,
meters was the woman who climbed
The
on the
woman,
Eiffel
yeah.
Tower. Yeah.
consecutive, just 110
Oh,
meter.
nice.
110 meters straight, like 316 feet of continuous
I
climbing.
was gonna say, what's that in units? People will know.
Yeah.
316 feet. Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my friend John Brown has beaten that,
Yeah.
no big deal.
but um
As we've learned, Jessie does not grade herself against other women. She raised herself against the field. So
Naturally. Well, then, so what was Ross's? You got Ross Edgley's
yeah,
stuff.
Ross Edgley, he climbed 8,848 meters in under 24 hours. It was a 10-meter rope, and he just did it over and over again from 9 a.m. one day to 7:30 a.m. the next day.
Whoa.
2 pairs of
That's an
shoes,
interesting
10
way to
pairs
do
of
it.
gloves,
Yeah.
8,000 calories.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Huh.
Do it legless.
I
One up him.
did. This is
Yeah,
like a
that's a
random
different
shout
challenge.
out. I haven't shouted out Team Red, White, and Blue on the podcast in a while, but when I was a cadet before I was like in the Army for real, we did a workout. It was like a 9/11 commemorative workout where in teams we climbed ropes equaling the height of the two towers. That was a pretty solid
Mm.
session. I burned through a pair of boots doing that one.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
those ropes will shred it.
how long can you hang from something? What's your record?
It depends so much on the diameter of the bar and the texture. If it's
That's
a
such a
small
specialist answer. That's such
bar.
a specialist answer.
Well, so I train my weighted hangs for like what's the heaviest weight I can do for 10 seconds on all these different surfaces. So like on a 1 inch ledge with two hands, I can do my body weight plus 100 pounds. But on a ring where I can lock my thumb around it, I can do my body weight plus 150 pounds on one arm. But then if the bar is like 1.5 inches diameter and I can't get my thumb and it's like a little smoother metal, then it's like my body weight plus 60 pounds on one arm. And so that's like half,
Hmm.
huge, huge difference. So the longest I've done on a bar is like 6 minutes ish, I think, which isn't that great for a ninja, but
I
that's what
saw,
it is right now.
we may need to verify this, Alex, because there was a rogue video of a
No,
guy that
Drew, I can verify this.
he hung
So
for an hour.
Jesse, you should
Yeah,
compete in
sure.
this at some point. But Rogue does a bunch of challenges every couple of months, and one of them is the cliffhanger challenge, which is just hang on a pull-up bar for as
Mm.
long as you can. There's guidance for what the diameter can be. There's rules.
Mhm.
I did it a couple years ago, and I think I placed like somewhere between 20 and 30, but that was with just like a 3-minute hang. Like it didn't take that
Mhm.
much to get pretty good. But the
Yeah.
difference
And
between
that's that
10th place
lactic
and first
system.
place, yeah, the difference between 10th place and first place was a whole different world because the
Wait,
guy
did he
who
do
won
an
hung for an
hour?
hour.
He did
Yeah,
an
he hung for
hour.
an hour.
I know a lot of kids under 10 years old that can do an hour. They're very light.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
yeah.
little kids in climbing gyms, that strength to weight ratio stuff before you hit puberty is crazy.
Yeah. 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 One
Okay.
of my friends she's like the same height as me, but she's probably like 20, 25 pounds lighter than me. Her best is 29 minutes. And she's a full adult.
Yeah. That's still,
Um,
I mean, it's a long time to hang from a bar.
a long time. Yeah.
Okay, one more closer. This is the most elaborate closer session we've had, and I appreciate you for that. What's the hardest thing you've ever done?
Hmm. Um, probably probably like recover from eating disorder.
Hmm.
Like that was definitely the most miserable thing in my life that was the most confusing as far as like how to get out of it. Very counterintuitive in a lot of ways.
Is that something that you have used to drive your success today, do you think?
I don't know. Um, if anything, I don't know, maybe I just have more growing to do in that area. If anything, it feels like it has somewhat inhibited success. It definitely like was detrimental to a lot of my success in pole vaulting. That's probably when it
Hmm.
was the worst. Um, I think it has forced me to grow in a lot of different ways. It's forced me to become more connected to like my emotions and myself as a human being versus like being able to shut things down and just be an athlete or just study. So maybe it's made me more well-rounded and more able to connect and relate to people. But I don't know if it has proven how it's going to make me better in the long run yet.
I love the yet part.
Yeah, I do think that like any struggle you go through, if you can't look at it and be like, oh, here's how my life is better because of that struggle, I think you just haven't found it yet. I think you can grow from every struggle, and it's just a matter of either looking for it or waiting for it to be revealed.
We just came full circle on the post-traumatic growth thing right there. That was great.
Yeah.
We didn't plan any of this. That was perfect.
Good work. That was a fun flow.
No, seriously, thank you. And thank you for the house tour. I mean, I'm jealous because I have a wooden pull-up bar for my toddler right next to me, but I need to install some stuff in the ceiling, I think. Step up my game.
Smart Playrooms has some good ceiling
There's
monkey bars.
really cool stuff out there for like
Okay.
kid gym stuff.
Writing it down.
I want to get a swing sesh. It's just like a backyard playground / squat rack situation.
Oh, I've heard of those. I've heard of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Smart playroom.
That's a good idea.
Well, thanks for coming to hang out with us. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thanks for good questions and good flow.
Oh, of course. I'm gonna go do some pull-ups.
Yes.
Top 5 coolest guests we've ever had on, I think. I hate saying that because then there's inevitably guests that are like, what the hell, man? But man, I don't know a lot about Ninja Warrior, but Jessie's she's a badass.
Drew doubted me on this one. This is just speaking directly to the audience here.
I just didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't doubt. Just didn't know.
Not a Ninja Warrior fan. I used to watch it religiously. I was all about it. Jessie was a huge deal at the time, still a huge deal, but like Drew had questions about what we were going to talk about and how we were going to make it relevant. And I think that one was awesome.
And there's so many threats. I mean, there's something in here for high-speed females looking for inspiration. There's something in here for women in general around questions with training and some of the myths that always seem to pop up with resistance training for women and blah, 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 blah. There's stuff in here for dudes who want to, like, you might think you're a badass, but go see if you can do the things Jessie's doing. And then there's even stuff in here for interior decorators because we got a little house tour. And I would advise folks to check the show notes, look at the YouTube links for what we're working with, because she's like hanging upside down when she's making dinner.
And I got a very important lesson about not trusting Wikipedia without checking the sources.
Yes. We'll say it in the intro. We said it in the episode, and we'll say it in the outro. Jessie does not, in fact, run a sub 16 5K. She will be the first to admit, despite what Wikipedia says. So you can't trust the internet. That was really the takeaway from today's episode. Can't trust the internet.
Jessie is capable of some incredible things physically, but I was really blown away when I was Googling and looking up stuff, and it said that a pole vaulter, who, as far as I could tell, had never been a competitive distance runner, also ran 5:20 pace for 3 miles. I was prepared to be astounded.
Yes, but despite the fact that's not true, the things that she has done are no less impressive.
It's true, and we'll speak it into existence here. I think it'd be super cool in the future to get Jessie's mom on the show. She mentioned working with her a bunch of times on here, but Jessie got her mom, Ginny, into training, I think in her 60s. I don't think it really started till she was 60. Had never really worked out before. So I got her first pull up ever when she was already older than 60 and is now absolutely crushing it, competed on Ninja Warrior, trains other people. Just a family of people that are absolutely pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So check the show notes for this one. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff in there. And see you next week. Hey, Alex, let's cover our ass real quick.
Oh, great idea, Drew. All right, guys. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Before you go, please rate and review the pod on the listening platform of your choice. You can also visit us on our website at www.mopsinmos.com. That's mops, the letter N, mos.com. You can check out the library of podcast episodes, our latest blog entries, any helpful resources, and also sign up for our newsletter.
Drew nailed it. Just to underline a couple of things, the podcast entries have in-depth show notes on the website. So if you missed anything or you want to read any of the research we talk about, it is all there. You can, at the bottom of the website, sign up with your email and receive future updates from us. The blog posts go a little bit more in depth in kind of written form on a couple of topics we get questions about all the time. But most importantly, I just want to ask all you guys, our best way the word gets out is absolutely word of mouth. So tell your friends, tell the people you work with, anybody you think would find it useful. Thanks for spreading the word.
If you have any questions or comments, feel free to shoot us an email at either Drew or Alex at mopsinmos.com.
Or there's a contact form on the website.